Ever imagine having like one app that controls your whole life?
Oh, wow.
I mean, paying bills, ordering food, talking to your friends,
Yeah.
even playing games.
Yeah.
That's the reality for millions in China, thanks to WeChat,
It's true.
created by, this tech giant Tencent.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're diving into Tencent,
Yep.
their rise, their global reach, all the big questions they bring up about like privacy, government control, and,
Right.
where tech is headed.
The future of tech, yeah.
You guys sent us a ton of articles on this, and we've pulled out like the most important bits.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, lots to unpack.
So let's start with how Tencent went from like a simple messaging app to this digital empire.
Right. Yeah.
What were those like key early steps?
I mean, WeChat is a classic example of a platform just growing beyond, its initial purpose.
Right.
It started as a messaging service, kind of like WhatsApp,
Okay.
but then they just went on this like crazy feature adding spree.
Okay. Adding features. I mean, that's pretty standard
Yeah.
for tech companies, right? What made WeChat like different?
It's just the sheer scope of what they did.
Right.
They brought in mobile payments,
Yeah.
online shopping, gaming. I mean, you name it. They added it to WeChat.
Wow.
It became this all-encompassing super app, and it just dominates daily life in China.
Okay, so that on the surface sounds super convenient.
Right.
I mean, who wouldn't want everything all in one app, right?
Exactly.
But then there's that flip side.
Yeah.
What are the like trade-offs for that level of convenience?
You hit the nail on the head.
Right.
That convenience comes with like massive data privacy concerns.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine how much info Tencent's collecting.
Yeah.
Transactions, browsing habits, location data, even your social interactions. It's like
Right.
a gold mine of personal data.
And that's where, all these questions about data security and potential misuse start popping up, right?
Exactly.
So what are the actual dangers of, one company having access to such a complete data set,
Right.
especially in a country like China?
Well, China's cybersecurity laws, they require companies to hand over user data to the government
Oh, wow.
if they ask for it.
Okay.
So there's basically no guarantee your WeChat data won't end up with the Chinese government.
That is unsettling.
Yeah.
It sounds like, Chinese citizens are trading privacy for convenience.
It's a trade-off a lot of them seem willing to make.
Okay.
But, this whole setup, it raises some serious red flags about censorship and surveillance.
Right.
There have been cases,
Yeah.
documented cases, of people losing their WeChat access for criticizing the government.
Oh, wow. That's a chilling example of how a platform can be used to control, what people are saying and doing online.
Yeah.
So Tencent's ambitions,
Yes.
they go beyond China, right?
Yeah.
They've been making moves in the global market too.
Absolutely. And their investment strategy is a big part of that.
Right.
They've been strategically buying up parts of companies all over the world,
Okay.
especially in the gaming industry.
We're talking some major players, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like what?
Think Riot Games, the people who made League of Legends.
I know, yeah. Yeah.
Epic Games, the Fortnite developers.
Right.
And they even have a big stake in Activision Blizzard, the company behind Call of Duty and World of Warcraft.
Oh, yeah.
These are household names for gamers everywhere.
Okay, so essentially, Tencent has a lot of power over the global gaming scene, right?
That might be an understatement.
Right.
And with all that power, it brings up a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Are they just buying their way to the top,
Right.
acquiring these big companies instead of coming up with new stuff themselves?
Yeah.
Or are they helping these companies grow and actually contributing to how the industry evolves?
Right.
I mean, it's a complicated issue, and there are good arguments on both sides.
Right. It makes you think about their end game, right?
Yeah.
Are they genuinely interested in, helping creativity, or is it just all business?
That's a debate that's going on right now, and it's something we need to watch closely.
Yeah, definitely.
But, Tencent's influence, it doesn't stop at gaming.
Right. There's that whole thing with the NBA a few years ago
Yes,
that
yeah.
really put Tencent's power in the spotlight, didn't it?
Absolutely. It was a perfect example of how they use their economic muscle to, sway international decisions,
Wow.
even in areas that seem completely unrelated to tech.
Yeah.
Right?
For those who don't remember, what happened?
So Daryl Morey, he was the general manager of the Houston Rockets.
Right.
He tweeted support for the Hong Kong protests.
Okay.
Tencent, who had this huge broadcasting deal with the NBA,
Yeah.
they flipped out.
Okay.
They reacted really strongly and quickly.
So what happened next?
They basically forced the NBA to punish Morey,
Wow.
which led to this public apology from Morey.
Okay.
And it really messed up the relationship between the NBA and China.
Right.
The whole thing started this international debate about free speech, corporate responsibility, and how much influence China has on global stuff.
It was a mess.
It was a mess.
That showed how, like, a single tweet could cause a huge geopolitical earthquake.
Yeah.
Especially with a company like Tencent involved.
Absolutely. It highlighted the power dynamics at play and the, really complicated relationship between global businesses and the Chinese government.
Yeah.
And this whole incident is just one piece of the puzzle when you're trying to understand Tencent.
Right. It's a fascinating case study in how technology, business, and politics are all getting tangled up.
Yeah, it's a trend we're seeing more and more, and it's something we got to pay attention to as we move forward.
And there's just so much more to uncover about Tencent's global reach and all the potential consequences. So let's dive deeper into that right after this.
Let's do it. I mean, Tencent's influence, it's huge in China. Especially with WeChat, it's become, essential for daily life there.
You mentioned earlier that in China, it's not just an app.
Yeah.
It's a way of life. Like, what does that actually look like?
Okay, imagine you wake up, you check WeChat for messages from friends and family, and then you use it to pay for your coffee.
Okay.
Later, you book a doctor's appointment through WeChat, you order groceries, you can even manage your investments all within the same app.
That's crazy.
I
mean, that level of integration, it's like a whole other digital world operating in China.
In a lot of ways, it is.
Right.
WeChat's the go-to platform for communication, shopping, entertainment, even government services.
Okay.
It's streamlined daily life in a way that's hard to grasp from an outside perspective.
But as we talked about before, that convenience comes at a price.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to data privacy.
Right.
So how has the Chinese government been using WeChat for their own purposes?
Well, China's cybersecurity laws, they give the government a ton of access to user data.
Right.
And Tencent has to comply. They have to hand it over.
Okay.
So basically, anything you do on WeChat could be seen by the Chinese authorities.
So is there any privacy for WeChat users in China?
It's complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, there are rules, but in reality, the Chinese government has a lot of control over data and what people do online.
Right.
It's a trade-off Chinese citizens have gotten used to. They prioritize the convenience and connection of WeChat.
It's so different from the privacy debates we see in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
Do you think this model of a government-controlled super app could ever work outside of China?
It's unlikely to be copied exactly as it is,
right?
Especially in democratic societies where privacy is a big deal.
Yeah.
But we're already seeing some aspects of it pop up in other places.
Really? Like how?
Just look at platforms like Facebook and Google.
Yeah.
They're adding more and more services all the time. Maybe they don't have the same level of government control as WeChat in China.
Right.
But they're gathering tons of data.
Okay.
And they have a lot of influence over their users.
That's a good point. It seems like globally there's this trend towards putting all our services and data in the hands of just a few big platforms.
Yeah.
It raises a lot of questions about like where the internet is headed.
Absolutely.
And the power balance between these companies and governments.
It all ties back to Tencent and their global goals. Remember those investments they've been making?
Yeah.
It's not just about buying companies.
Right.
They're gaining a foothold in key industries worldwide.
Right. We talked about their investments in gaming companies.
Yeah, like Riot Games, Epic Games.
Right.
How do those acquisitions play into their bigger plan? These acquisitions, they give Tencent access to massive global audiences.
Right, yeah.
And really valuable intellectual property.
Okay.
It's not just about the money.
Right.
It's about spreading Tencent's reach and influence globally.
Wow.
They're basically shaping the future of digital entertainment.
It sounds like they're thinking long term.
Oh, yeah, decades ahead.
What's their end game? Do they want to be like the biggest tech company in the world?
It's definitely possible. I mean, their track record shows they're ambitious and they plan things out carefully.
Yeah.
They're not just following trends, they're setting them.
And we've seen how well they can use their power.
Right.
Both in China and internationally.
Exactly. The NBA thing was a real eye-opener.
Yeah.
It showed how Tencent can use its money to influence decisions and silence people, even on a global stage.
So how do we deal with this new world where companies like Tencent have so much power?
It's a tough question. There are no easy answers.
Right.
But it starts with knowing what's going on.
Okay.
We need to understand how these companies work, how they use our data, and how they deal with governments.
So knowledge is the first step. What comes after that?
We need to demand more transparency and accountability from these tech giants. Consumers, we have power. We can choose who we support. We can fight for stronger privacy laws. And we can hold these companies responsible.
It sounds like we need both individual action and bigger changes to fix these problems.
Absolutely. We need to push for a future where technology helps humanity, not the other way around. A future where innovation comes with individual rights and ethical considerations.
We've covered Tencent's strategy of buying other companies. And the concerns about whether that limits innovation. But let's look closer at those specific criticisms. So some people say that Tencent focusing on buying successful companies instead of coming up with new things themselves could actually hurt creativity in the tech world.
Yeah, it's a valid concern. Acquisitions, sometimes they can create this monopoly effect where one company controls like a huge chunk of the market. And that can make it hard for new ideas and competitors to pop up.
It's like that saying, if you can't beat them, buy them.
Exactly.
But does that automatically mean the end of innovation? I mean, are there times when Tencent buying these companies actually helped them and the whole industry?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's not so simple.
Right.
In some cases, Tencent's acquisitions gave smaller companies the resources they needed, like the money and infrastructure to grow and reach more people.
Okay.
Like Riot Games, the League of Legends developers,
right.
They did really well under Tencent.
Okay.
They expanded into new markets and made new games.
So it's not always about squashing innovation.
Right.
Sometimes it's about giving companies the right environment to thrive.
Exactly.
But then how do we balance that with those worries about Tencent's real motives?
It's a tough balancing act.
Right.
We can't forget that Tencent is a business.
Right.
Their main goal is to make money, but their actions, they have a big impact on the tech world and all the people who use their products.
Yeah.
We need to keep an eye on them and make sure they're creating a fair and competitive environment.
We talked a lot about like the potential downsides of Tencent's rise.
Yeah.
But what about the good stuff?
Right.
I mean, they've definitely contributed a lot to technology in people's lives.
Absolutely.
Especially in China.
Especially in China.
Yeah. Can you talk about that a bit more?
For sure. We can't ignore the convenience and accessibility WeChat brought to everyday life in China.
Right.
It totally changed how people communicate, shop, do their banking, even access government services. It made so many things easier, saving people time and effort.
It sounds like they genuinely made life better for a lot of people in China.
In many ways, they did.
Okay.
And they've also been leaders in innovation, especially with things like mobile payments and social commerce.
Yeah.
They've pushed the limits of what's possible and inspired other companies all over the world.
It's a good reminder that even the biggest and most controversial companies can do good things too.
It's all about understanding the nuances, you know?
Right.
They're not all good or all bad.
Yeah.
But what they do has a huge impact, and we need to be aware of that.
So as Tencent's influence keeps growing in China and globally, what are the key takeaways for our listeners?
First, just be aware, know what's going on, understand how Tencent operates, the data they collect, their relationship with the Chinese government, and their global goals. Second, remember the trade-offs. Convenience often means less privacy.
Right.
We need to make smart choices about the platforms we use and the data we share.
Those are really good points. Anything else?
Don't be afraid to ask questions, challenge assumptions, and hold these tech giants accountable.
Right.
The future of technology isn't set in stone. It's shaped by the choices we make today.
So it's about being informed, engaged, and proactive.
Exactly.
In building the digital world we want to live in.
Exactly. And remember, technology should be there to help us, not the other way around.
Well said.
Thank you.
That's a perfect way to wrap things up. Thanks for sharing your insights with us today.
My pleasure.
It's been a fascinating deep dive into the world of Tencent.
It's a topic that needs attention.
Absolutely.
And critical discussion.
To our listeners, we hope this deep dive gave you a better understanding of Tencent, their rise, their reach, and the questions they raise about the future of technology.
Right.
Remember, the future is in our hands.
It is.
Let's make it a future worth fighting for.